Succumb to the darkness. That's right, if you haven't heard, Robert Eggers has redone Nosferatu, the original German film that was made in 1922. Lily Rose Depp plays Ellen Hutter. Nicholas Hoult plays Thomas Hutter. And none other than Bill Skarsgård plays Count Orlok. And Willem Dafoe also plays in Nosferatu. And of course, this influential and iconic classic was directed by none other than Robert Eggers. Nosferatu, Dracula, vampires became extremely popular in the 19th and 20th centuries with Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1897 and the German film Nosferatu in 1922. But did you know that Nosferatu is the Romanian word for vampire? The same way that Romanian peasants believe in heaven and hell, they also believe that there are two types of vampires, living and dead. Looking at the history and the folklore of the vampire, as you can see here on Wikipedia, it says the causes of the vampiric generation were many and varied in original folklore. In Slavic and Chinese traditions, any corpse that was jumped over by an animal, particularly a dog or a cat, was feared to become one of the undead. A body with a wound that had not been treated with boiling water was also at risk. In Russian folklore, vampires were said to have once been witches or people who had rebelled against the Russian Orthodox Church while they were alive. A vampire is a mythical creature that subsists by feeding on the vital essence, generally in the form of blood, of the living. In European folklore, vampires are undead humanoid creatures that often visited loved ones and caused mischief or deaths in the neighborhoods which they inhabited while they were alive. They wore shrouds and were often described as bloated and of ruddy or dark countenance, markedly different from today's gaunt, pale vampire, which dates from the early 19th century. In cultures around the world, the term vampire was popularized in Western Europe after reports of an 18th century mass hysteria of pre-existing folk belief in the southeastern and eastern Europe that in some cases resulted in corpses being staked and people being accused of vampirism. Local variants in southeastern Europe were also known by different names. In Albania, Greece, Romania. In modern times, the vampire is generally held as a fictitious entity, although belief in similar vampiric creatures, such as the chupacabra, still persists in some cultures. Early folk belief in vampires has sometimes been ascribed to the ignorance of the body's process of decomposition after death and how people in pre-industrial societies try to rationalize this, creating the figure of the vampire to explain all the mysteries of death. Now, the story of Dracula and vampires started hundreds of years ago with Vlad the Impaler, who is Vlad III, or Vlad Dracula. Vlad Dracula, or Vlad the Impaler, Vlad III, was the voivode of Wallachia 3 times from 1448 until his death in 1476 or 77. He is often considered one of the most important rulers in Wallachia history and the national hero of Romania. And while he did have many castles, and it's also said to be the inspiration and muse for Bram Stoker's Dracula, the ruins of the princely court is said to be one of the many, many castles that he inhabited during his many rules. Bran Castle is also said to be one of them, but this is also said to be the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula. And you can see it in Romanian, German, and Hungarian. But the Ponari Castle is the real castle of Vlad III, Vlad Dracula, Vlad the Impaler. and you can still visit it today, although it is in ruins. It is both hauntingly scary and hauntingly beautiful simultaneously. Now, it is unknown whether or not all of the myth and the tales and the folklore surrounding Vlad III dipping his bread in the blood of his victims are true, but the stories of his unspeakable sadism swirled throughout Europe for hundreds of years. In total, Vlad is estimated to kill about 80,000 people through various means, but one of his favorite was impaling, and also other very violent, scary, haunting forms. And then he would then take the head and put it on a spike as a warning to others. I don't know about you, but me, myself, if I saw that, yeah, I'm a runner. I'd be running the other way. Vlad Dracula became the ruler of Wallachia in 1436. Vlad and his younger brother Radu were held as hostages in the Ottoman Empire in 1442 to secure their father's loyalty. Vlad's eldest brother and their father were murdered after Regent Governor of Hungary invaded Wallachia in 1447. Vlad's second cousin, Vladislav II, was the new voivode installed by that regent governor. A whole military campaign against the Ottomans in the autumn of 1448 was launched. Stories about Vlad's brutal acts began circulating during his lifetime. After his arrest, courtiers of Matthias Corvinus promoted their spread. The papal legate had already written about such stories to Pope Pius II in 1462. 2 years later, the Pope included them in his commentaries. It was even rumored that Vlad once dipped his bread in the blood of his impaled victims, but this so far remains legendary, as the story has never been confirmed. There have been poems, novels, books, plays that have been spread for hundreds of years about Vlad Dracula. Even those that cite he came back from the dead. Or even better yet, he has been undead for hundreds of years. Now, while in 1922, moving pictures were still largely in its infancy, Nosferatu was a German silent film that was based on Dracula by Bram Stoker. Its release date was June 1st of 1929. It is considered to be legend in horror, fantasy, and expressionistic style. Considering that the first ever frame-by-frame moving picture was made only in 1888, and the first full-length feature film was made in 1902, horror and ghost tales and scary stories have been enmeshed in the birth and the growth and the maturing of the film industry since the birth of being able to make films. So vampire, Dracula, witch, hauntingly thriller, psychological type of films, whether they're black and white or in color, or they are silent or with dialogue, have always been one of the largest genres of films that have ever existed internationally worldwide. Lily Rose Depp does a phenomenal job in this film as she becomes increasingly haunted by Nosferatu, and Nosferatu obsessed with her. You see the color palette and the saturation shift right as all of the scenes do, and the introduction of characters. The build-up to fright is fantastic. The color palette and the feeling is inescapable. As you watch Nosferatu 2024, it is equally vibrant and beautiful, yet scary. I highly suggest you watch. You can go to nosferatuthefilm.com to get your tickets.